Today is D-Day in Bayelsa and Kogi states. If you recall, last week we actually had two guests in the studio. Well, one guest in Lagos and one in Abuja talking about the elections in Bayelsa. And you will recall that the picture wasn't it wasn't a very, very happy picture. But it's all happening today, and we're going to bring you a report now from Terry Ikome, who will be reporting from Kogi West. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Terry. What's happening in your neck of the wood? In Iyara. That's Iyara in Kogi West. Terry.
Oh dear.
Okay. Let's speak with.
There he comes.
Okay. Let's speak with our guests in Abuja.
We have DIG operations retired, Mr. Abila Joshak, who will be talking to us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Joshak.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yes. INEC said they were ready. Security agencies said they were ready. The voters said they were ready. Everybody said they were ready. Now, let's look at the security angle with you. How prepared do you think that security agencies are for today's elections in Kogi and Bayelsa?
Well, there have been a lot of positive statements made by the Mr. President and other concerned people, particularly the Inspector General of Police, who have said they are mindful. They are not mindful. They are not unmindful of possibility of any violence in either Kogi or Bayelsa. And so the Inspector General of Police have deployed over 66,000 policemen, with more than 35,000 to Kogi, and then more than 21,000 personnel to Bayelsa for this election.
Okay, so this deployment, some of the observers and monitors have said that, you know, it would look like it's being over-militarized, or, you know,
it's not a war.
It's not, yes, you know.
So
what do you have to say about that vis-a-vis some of the violence that we have seen in both states?
I don't know if there's any reported this morning, but there's no over-policing. By the time you look at all the polling units, the polling booths, escort of the materials, securing the venue, protecting observers, both international and local. If you spread the 66,000 across these two states, then you can barely have maybe 3 police officers to 1 polling unit. And so there's no, there can be no assumption that the process is militarized. I don't think so.
Okay, let's quickly go back to Terry Ikome in Iyara, Kogi West. Terry, bring us up to speed with what's going on.
Hello, yes, I am actually at Ward 00, polling unit 002 Iara. And just before you introduced me, the Senator Smart, who was the second candidate going head-to-head with Dino Melaye, just arrived his polling unit now, and he has opted to join the queue, so he's at the back of the queue right now. We understand that there are about 974 registered voters here. We've seen about 5 unarmed policemen and 1 NSCDC official. So far, it's been smooth sailing. There's been no case of violence. We've only just returned from Iluafo, that's Senator Dino Melaye's polling unit, and it was also smooth sailing there. At about 9:16 a.m., Senator Dino Melaye voted, and the process as well was smooth. About 745 registered voters there. So far, it's been smooth. From here, we plan to move to other polling units. Senator Dino Melaye did say, however, that he got information that there are some areas, some local governments where violence was being perpetuated, and he's informed the Nigeria police force, and he believes that something will be done. He is confident of winning this. We're hoping to speak to Senator Smart at AME the moment he casts his vote.
Tell us, what's the turnout of voters like in that area that you are?
Oh, it's looking like it's a good turnout. It's actually a good turnout, if I may say that, because so far we've seen the queue extend, shorten, extend. So clearly people take their time to come when they should. The same thing applies to Dino Melaye's ward as well. So in all, it's the turnout is quite commendable.
Its preparation. When did the officials get there? Did they get there on time? And talk to us about the security, operatives. 31,000 policemen have been deployed. How many of them, or how much of them have you seen around?
Okay, let me start with the election officials. They were quite on time. Voting started at Senator Dino Melaye's ward at about 8:06 a.m. From what we gather, it also started here on time because we didn't come here at that time. We had to go there first. That started well. For the security operatives, you mentioned clearly 35,000 policemen deployed. We took a trip all the way from Lokoja. There was no policeman until we got to around Kaba, but we eventually started seeing policemen at the polling unit. A lot of them unarmed. We have the armed policemen at 1 or 2 checkpoints in between Iara and Lokoja. That's in Kogi West. So in all, so far, you could possibly say that it's neither here nor there to place your finger as to whether or not policemen are evenly distributed. As I mentioned, here you have about 5 of them. At Iluafo, you have about 2 of them.
Talk to us about the process, the card readers, is everything going on smoothly where you are?
Yes, absolutely. There's been no reported case, at least none that we're aware of any card reader malfunctioning. And one of the things I did notice, however, is the process. We spoke with a man who was visually impaired, and he complained bitterly about the lack of braille materials provided for them. He initially said that INEC had promised that material would be provided for them to enable him vote. So he did cast his vote with the aid of his grandson, but he couldn't categorically say whether or not his vote would count, considering that he didn't have any. He wasn't so sure about where it printed. So that's one of the issues I think that will be raised. And remember, yesterday I did bring it to your attention that a set of election observers, physically challenged, will be deployed to various polling units under the Access Nigeria group, and their duty is to monitor whether INEC will fulfill its promise of ensuring that the visually impaired are paid close attention to. Let me also draw your attention to the fact that there's been some they've canvassed for the elderly to get special attention. We didn't see that initially when we got to Iluafo ward, that's Senator Dino Melaye's ward, until an elderly woman fell to the ground, and then the INEC officials felt it was necessary to create a separate line for the elderly, and that's helped the process.
Yeah, you've spoken about the visually impaired. What about the other physically challenged people? Are they able to cast their votes?
Okay. We haven't seen anyone at any of the polling units yet. So we also haven't seen these physically challenged election observers that Access Nigeria says it will send to some of these areas. About 200 of them, according to what we were told yesterday. So we're looking to see whether we'll get some of those observations eventually.
All right, thank you so much, Terry. At this time, we'll let you go, but of course, we'll be back to you at, as soon as you have more information for us. Thank you so much, Terry Kumi, there in Iyara, Kogi West, in Kogi State, for the governorship and senatorial elections.
Thankfully, everything is going peacefully.
So far,
The two senators in contention have cast their votes without any incidents. So we're happy, even though we heard all kinds of things before now about these elections in Kogi.
So far, so good. Okay, so let's go back to Abuja. Mr. Jolshak is still there. Tell us about, we're talking about security, and you have said you do not think this process is over-policed. So what else would you think, or would you advise the security operatives to do, in terms of if there are issues, security issues that will come up, in terms of how they should handle it?
Yeah, the preparation, the police is aware that there could be potential violent individuals lurking around. And my advice to them is to adhere to the statement made by the president of this country, that they should allow the process to flow and build in some integrity in the process. The Inspector General of Police also did say that the policemen are expected to put up a very, very excellent behavior to ensure that everyone that has queued up to vote is allowed to do so, and take out those of them that want to precipitate violence. And like I told you, this deployment of police officers and their activities today is a build-up from what we normally do, what we call the security analysis that has been done in the various states, the 2 states. That has been done long ago in intelligence-led surveillance and then studies, and this is what is informing them of this number that they've deployed. And I have no doubt that they're going to play by the games, and they will be able to also provide that security, because the police and other security agencies have just the sole responsibility of providing security for the process to be credible.
You said that they are to provide security for, the process to be credible. We heard yesterday about an incident in Bayelsa State when some police officers or alleged police officers went to a particular hotel. And of course, the police have said that, hey, we got information and we went there just to check. Yes, in carrying out this responsibility, for instance, the policeman at the polling unit, what exactly is he expected to do?
Okay, the police officers deployed at the various polling units are not expected to bear arms. They are not expected to bear arms. They are supposed to be there to make sure that every electorate have an opportunity to queue up and have the advantage of casting his votes. They also want to ensure that the staff of INEC and the ad hoc staff, including the National Youth Service personnel, are not also exposed to any threat or danger. They are also expected to ensure that election observers, both local and international, have the opportunity to make their observation. In fact, theirs is just providing security across all boards to ensure that people are allowed to exercise their franchise, and those of them that are responsible for ensuring that the materials and the equipments are there, and the materials and equipments are also protected. Beyond that, the police don't have any business in deciding who should vote or who should not vote, or whether a vote is wrongly done or not properly, or done well. Theirs is just providing security, observe and ensure that there is some orderliness, and that's the role of the police on election day.
Okay, so we will quickly go back to Kogi. I think Kayla Megwa is in Lokoja, and she's ready to give us an update on what's happening in that part of the state. Kayla.
Yes, of course, we are still here in Lokoja. This is Ward A, like we said earlier. And if you can see from the visuals that are about to be played for you right now, voting has started in earnest. It's a very interesting number of people who have come out, a lot more than many people had projected would be present for this particular exercise. At this particular ward that we're at, one card reader wasn't working earlier, but that situation has been fixed and voting has continued in earnest right here in Ward A in Lokoja. We took our time to walk around the neighborhood and went to a place called Amule, and we looked at the voting process there as well. We were seeing a lot of women on the queues, and earlier Gimba had asked me if we saw any people who looked like they were underaged on the queue, and I saw a few women on the queue right there at Amule, and I asked all of them to show us their PVCs. If you can see them right now showing us their PVCs, and of course exercising their right to vote. It's a very peaceful exercise. Someone did tell us that one person was arrested at the Amule voting center, but we don't have the visuals for that yet. But voting has continued right here in Lokoja. Interesting turnout, a lot of women out here to exercise their franchise. No worries so far. I haven't seen any controversies that would be worth any major incident. The person fell down, for instance, and they came to save him. And of course, the incident that they told us that happened at Amule. But apart from that, everything else has been going on smoothly right here in Ward A in Lokoja.
Okay, so for some of those registered and eligible voters who perhaps are still at home and thinking, okay, I'll soon get to the polling unit, how much time do they have left?
You know, while we were at Amule, there was a woman who had been there all morning, and you know, she was trying to get her way into the polling unit, and they told her no, she had to wait her turn, and she got very impatient and wanted to leave. And I remember asking her not to go, and she said, "My sister, I will go home and I will come back." You know, so a few people may feel that way. That is natural because it's very sunny here in Lokoja. But for the people who are at home and thinking they can come out much later, I'm thinking they should come out right now because it's moving really smoothly, at least for this ward. You know, we talked to a few election observers earlier from the British High Commission. We had Mr. Dominic talk to us earlier. And Mr. Dominic was saying that, look, it's actually going smoothly, smoother than they thought it was going to be initially. But for this ward, if you're at home and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to come back much later, they're going to waste their time, you'll be making a very big mistake because the process has been going on smoothly. The card readers are working, at least for the places that we went to. One card reader wasn't working here earlier, but that situation has been fixed. So yes, it will be important for people to come out now and cast their votes while they can.
So what time does voting close?
Voting is so that's the thing. That's a conversation that people are trying to have about the extension of the voting period. So we cannot say exactly right now. There hasn't been any word on it. It was supposed to start at 8 a.m. this morning. It didn't start at 8 a.m. at least for Ward A here in Lokoja. It didn't start at 8 a.m. It was delayed for about an hour and a few minutes. So we don't know what it's going to be. We'll be keeping you updated on that. However, but the voting didn't start when it was supposed to, especially since it didn't start here. Talk about the places, because this was a deployment point. Remember, it was from here that voting materials were going to other polling units around Lokoja. So if it didn't start here at 8 a.m. as it was supposed to, was delayed by an hour, we cannot tell when those ones started. So that would that would in many ways affect when it will end today.
Okay, so we've heard when you cast your vote, make sure your vote counts. And so we've heard in the past, when you vote, just stay in a particular distance and watch until the vote is counted. Are you seeing, people staying around and saying they want to see when the vote will be counted?
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of people, I don't know if we can turn the camera to just see them. A lot of people who have voted, we're going to see if we can take the camera so you can see where they are. A lot of people that you're seeing right now actually have cast their votes and they are waiting. Many party officials, of course, at polling units as usual. But for these ones here, they're very, very dogged. They're saying they're going to be here until everything is sorted out, and then they're making sure that there's no hanky-panky. They want to make sure that their votes are cast, that no one is taking advantage of this exercise to promote whatever personal agendas they may have. But a lot of people, as you can see there from the visuals, waiting. And this is just one side. To my right-hand side, there's a whole group of people in the whole classrooms on the other side here as well, who are waiting for everything to be sorted out before they leave here.
Good people. Thank you very much, Kayla. We'll come back at some point for further updates as regards what's happening in Lokoja.
We'll take a break.
We'll just take a short break, come back, and continue the conversation with our guest in Abuja. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. We still have our guest in Abuja, the retired DIG Operations, Mr. Abila Joshak.
Okay, before you toss your question to him, did you see, you know, at Kogi there, where when the cameras went to those that were waiting and a man was carrying his child, I thought that's
confidence.
Yeah, so because if you go to the polling unit with your child, that means you're at peace, you know, to some degree.
Exactly.
That, you know, nothing is going to happen that is
and that's a very good sign.
Okay.
That's a very good sign.
Okay, I thought.
And Mr. Joshak, you spoke about the policemen being present but being unarmed. How do you think that their presence would affect the voter? If, for instance, you get to a polling unit and there are like 5, 8 policemen hanging around, albeit unarmed, don't you think that this will affect the psychology of the people and make them want to turn away?
Not really. This is not the first time that we're having police officers and other security agencies deployed to the polling booths and armed. The idea is a deliberate attempt to make sure that people are not coerced and people are not getting jittery, that an armed person is standing very close by and that they won't have that kind of leverage and freedom to exercise their franchise. Rather, what the police have done, and I think they've done it this time around, is to identify a place far off from the various polling units and a patrol vehicle station with armed men so that they can cut short response time in the event of an incident. And I think that is, this is fine with international based practice. When you begin to put in police officers and other security agencies armed at the polling units, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of complaints and people are going to be scared and people will think that the process is not transparent. So I think that is the ideal thing to do internationally, and we have to do that also here in Nigeria.
You said that they're there so that people are not coerced, but from other elections we have had, we know that people are coerced and people are bribed, given all kinds of things at polling units. So is it that these things are done in the presence of police officers?
I can assure you that if there's any issue that, like we've had in the past, of people being coerced to vote, that could be the various political parties' members that are hanging around 300 meters. Some don't even want to observe the 300 meters away from the polling booth. And these are the people that do not know or deliberately want to steal to campaign and to ask people to vote. Otherwise, there's no police officer in anybody's imagination on election day will canvass or coerce people to vote. No, we don't do that. Rather, we would advise that there should be sanity, there should be decorum, and people should behave well at the polling units. And so it's people trying to ventilate their opinion, and it's supposed to be a celebrated kind of thing that people have freedom to freely choose who should represent them. I haven't had cases of where police officers brutalize people one on cue. That is highly, highly not allowed. And if there's any, the consequences will be very, very grave.
Don't say that the police were doing the coercion. Agents of political parties will come to those locations to coerce people and offer them all kinds of gratification for voting for their candidates or their parties.
Yes, I agree with you. We've seen that, and we've made arrests. I believe that the Inspector General of Police is aware of all those, but it is true that those of them that are agents don't behave well. And because if police would want to take them out there and then it will be misinterpreted. And that's why sometimes the police are and other security agencies responsible for provision of security at the polling booth are very, very careful. They could draw the attention of such persons that is hanging either to canvass for vote, because the electoral law does not allow you on election day to canvass for votes, to also even wear the insignia or the uniform of any political parties or shout any slogan. All those electoral laws, people have refused to abide by them. And that's why police officers try as much as possible to be very, 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 very fair so that the process cannot be truncated. Otherwise, if any police officer sees anybody giving money, the law permits that officer to take out that man, and the receiver and the giver. I assure you, if it happened in public glare and the attention of the police officers is drawn, that is the action this police officer is going to take.
So ahead of this election, of course, we saw the violence in Nembe and, the attacks, of course, also in Kogi State. But so far, the reports that violence hasn't been recorded and things like that. What do you think played out?
Yes, we understand that in Nembe, that there was some attacks and a journalist, a journalist was killed. That I'm sure, if true, it will be verified and it will be taken out in isolation of election, because the law will take its course. And I can assure you also that Nembe has a difficult terrain, and security personnel there, whether the police, the civil defense, or the military, will be able to identify those people that perpetrated that act and will be taken out and will face justice. Again, for Kogi, we also learned that the governor of Oyo State, who is leading the campaign for the PDP, were attacked, but that the attack was foiled by police officers and his security details. That also will be taken in isolation and will process through justice system. I can be sure that I think they will be able to do that. But of all this, you understand that politics is about agreement to disagree, or disagreement to agree, and people expressing their opinion, and some of these things are likely to come up. But if they're nip in the bud, I think there will be some sanity into the system. But you remember the Inspector General of Police yesterday or a few days ago said, snatch ballot boxes and lose your life. That is a very, very critical. And so police officers on election duty and other security agencies will look out for such people.
In that case you were talking about concerning the governor of Oyo State, they've come out to say there was no attack. It was an information they got, and that there were some thugs in that particular hotel, and they went there, and since there were no thugs, they just left. But I was speaking to the fact that so far during this election, all of the violence we've heard before the election, during this election, we haven't heard, confirmed cases of violence. What do you think, happened? Is it a question of, the number of deployed police operatives, or what exactly do you think has curbed so far violence?
Okay, yes. One of the reasons why violence have not been noticed could be that, it's an off-cycle election. You also know that the police and other security agencies, particularly the police, did what we call threat analysis security of Kogi and also of Bayelsa. They got that, and they've been on ground for quite some time. And I also know that the men were deployed not just yesterday, but they were deployed long ago, say about 4 or 5 days ago. And every one of them had had the opportunity to show presence. There were patrol, both sea and land. And that has sent a message to would be perpetrators of crime, and those who would want to truncate the process must have seen the handwriting on the wall. So I think INEC and the police and other security agencies have really collaborated, and because of the proactiveness and because of some of the things that have been said that would happen to those of them who want to truncate this system, I think a lot of them have gone into hiding. And so I will advise that while these security agencies and all other stakeholders have done well, that we have not seen one report yet, they should hold on to that and up the process to ensure that there's credibility and an atmosphere of free and peaceful environment created for those who will come out to vote.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Abila Joshak, retired DIG Operations, who was speaking to us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you very much, Mr. Joshak. Sunrise, we'll just take a short break, come back, and continue our various conversations.